Hello, everybody. I believe we are live, right, Sarah? It looks like I didn't get a message on this end, but I think we are. Yes, we're live. Awesome. So thank you so much for joining me today to talk about breaking the mold, applying to business school with a non-traditional background. I think we're going to have a really great conversation. I think you're going to get a lot of great information. And so I'm happy to lead today's conversation. Before I do, I'd like to just share a little bit about Forte and some amazing free upcoming events that are happening. So here at Forte, we work really hard at fueling the future of business. And so we do that by helping you to see what's possible for your future, for your career, for your bank account. And so we do this by bringing events like the one today, programming that kind of helps you. We have prep programs as well to help and that are designed to help you reach your goal of getting an MBA. So first of all, one event that we would love to have you at, it is a free event. It is one of our pilot events, one of our flagship events, and that is our Forte MBA forums that we hold in the fall. So our next one and our last one actually for 2025 will be on December 5th. At 11 a.m. Eastern, I believe 11 to 2. It is a virtual full-time MBA forum. You are allowed to connect with other member schools. They will have booths there. You're able to network with future peers or with other candidates who are in the same process as you. We will have great panels. We'll have an admission panel. We'll have an alumni panel. It's a great way to expand your network, to connect and to get more information on how you can get into an MBA school. If you are looking to build your best application, we do have 2 of our 3 flavors of launch that are currently open. Our first one is for those that are looking to meet January deadlines. So if you're wanting to, meet those round 2 deadlines, I suggest you scan this QR code right away or run to our website and look up what the MBA Launch Hybrid program is all about. It is geared to help you build your best application. I know Sarah is dropping links to the particular page on the hybrid program. If you are like, Melissa, that's too soon, I need some more prep, then great. We've got the 8-month cohort program, and that is for those that are applying in fall of 2026. So if you're looking to sit inside of a business school in 2027, then you'll definitely want to scan that QR code, run to our website, and check out the MBA Launch Cohort Program. That is an 8-month, very high-touch program that is geared to help you build your best application. It touches all facets of the business application, as well as a lot of self-reflection, school selection, that sort of thing. So if you're looking for a great kind of boot camp kind of program, definitely sign up. Look at our MBA Launch cohort program because we definitely want to help you get MBA school ready. We also have some upcoming MBA webinars like the one you're attending today. So our next webinar will be on November 20th, and that's going to be our MBA Launch info session. So if you're like, Melissa, you're talking about hybrid, you're talking about 8-month cohort, what's the difference? What's going to be best for me? You'll definitely want to come to this free webinar and have all your questions answered. So they're going to do a full overview of the programming as well as answer questions live. So be sure to register for this free event. Sarah also just dropped the calendar link to register for free on Zoom. So make sure you do that while you're here. And then for those that are applying in January, there's a great webinar you do not want to miss. That's our December 4th, preparing for January business school deadline. So we'll have some amazing schools on that panel that will be sharing insights on that as well. If you have questions regarding anything that you have seen today, please don't hesitate to shoot us an email. There's 3 of us that compose the early career pre-MBA, MBA launch team. It's Ashley, Sarah, and myself, Melissa. And we're more than happy to answer any questions for you. So let me stop sharing because everybody is ready to get into this panel, right? We're ready to hear all the amazing insights that these 2 amazing women have. So if you're thinking that you don't have the background in finance or consulting to thrive in business school or to get in, An MBA is a very transformational degree, and it doesn't matter what your professional background is. And these two women are going to show you how that happens, and we're going to hear their amazing story. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and have Sarah and Mira introduce themselves before we get into the conversation.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. So hi, everyone. My name's Savannah Thomas. I graduated from Georgia Tech, Scheller College of Business in, oh goodness, 2023. So I've been out just over 2 years. I currently work as an engagement manager for the Alexander Group. We're a go-to-market consulting firm. Yeah, and I'm sure we'll get into like a lot more of the details, but I think that's probably a good high level. Mira?
Hey, my name's Mira. I'm actually currently based in London, but I went to the Cambridge Judge Business School, and I'm currently COO of a music tech startup that's based in Sweden, which I was actually living there for a few years as well after the MBA. And yeah, that's the high level.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Savannah and Mira. This first question I'm going to pose to Savannah to lead us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your pre-MBA work experience?
Yeah, so non-traditional, I think, really sums it up to a T. So I actually have an undergraduate degree in fine art photography from the Savannah College of Art and Design. After graduating, I worked as a studio assistant for a couple years and then eventually got into curatorial work. And then probably for about 5 years prior to coming back and getting my MBA, I worked for a regional arts nonprofit, and was kind of like their overall like visual arts programming director. So oversaw exhibitions, curation of exhibits, worked with our visual arts like education programming, and kind of held up the curriculum, organizing teachers, worked with community. I sat on several boards as like art program managers working on public art projects. And then also like kind of the last kind of little leg of my job is I worked on private art collections. So worked with like a hospital on like $1 million collection and kind of identifying artists and going out, buying, sourcing, and then overseeing the installation of that for a new wing that they were building. So kind of did basically everything except business. But yeah, Myra.
Hey, yeah, I mean, so I have a bit of a weird background as well, obviously. I studied physics and economics in my undergrad, and I had no intention of pursuing physics further. I just liked it, and I liked the way that it taught me how to problem solve. I was a data analyst after that, right out of school, and I actually fell into a job with an alumni of my school on the operations side of an art startup that was using tech for art and media for large art installations across Southern California, and worked my way up to COO there. But I've also always loved music myself. So I did my physics thesis on music and pianos. And living in LA, I naturally came across a lot of people in the music industry, kind of help them with their business side of things. And so it sort of got me thinking, well, if I can succeed in one creative field, can I succeed in another? But I won't get ahead of the questions, but that's sort of my pre-MBA background.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing how it wasn't, you guys don't have like finance. Like I love that it's like art and it's just so, yeah, it's amazing. So, okay. So the next question is going to go to Mira. When did you first start thinking about an MBA, and were there other degrees or options that you also considered?
So honestly, I was actually very anti-MBA. I even though I was in art, I was COO, so I was quite operational, quite business, a lot about scaling organically, sort of bootstrapping a startup growth. And I sort of was of the school, well, the best school for business is a startup. But actually, the idea first came to my head when one of my friend's older sisters, she actually went to Oxford for her MBA. And she had like a life transplant. Like she broke up with her old partner, found a new guy. Like she used to work in trading currencies. She started actually like a cannabis soda company, and her life just seemed really transformed. And so that's sort of when the first thought of an MBA, especially an international one, came to my mind. I had always wanted to live abroad and study abroad, and that was sort of when the ruminations of it became interested in my mind.
Oh,
I love that. Go ahead, Amanda.
No, you're fine. So yeah, I will be perfectly honest, which was that an MBA was like never a thought I had until one day it was, and it was just like I couldn't shake it. I think when I graduated from undergrad, I kind of always suspected that some sort of secondary, like postgraduate degree was in my future. But then as I just kind of got like farther along in like my career post undergrad, it felt like too much of a disruption to like go back and get a master's in art or curatorial studies, which were kind of like the initial things that I was considering. And then COVID hit, and that kind of hit really at the same time that I was also going through I was ready for my next challenge. I'd been at this organization for 5 years. My boss, I loved her, but she was only a few years older than me, and there wasn't like a lot of upward mobility. So I'd already started to look and see like what are other jobs, like where's my next opportunity. And then with COVID, it really just like the art industry changed kind of overnight in a lot of ways, and I recognized that probably my next opportunity, if I wanted to feel in control of my own destiny, if I wanted to make that happen quickly, it probably wasn't going to be in the art space. So I had a few mentors through like being on boards and having those relationships who were more in the private sector. And so we just started having a lot of conversations talking about what they saw in me that maybe I didn't see in myself, and how maybe my skill sets could translate to more of the private sector. And it was actually like somebody else who said, "Hey, I think everything you're describing, like all the things that make you excited, that make you passionate, that fulfill you, you're describing a consultant." And that was like, at the moment I was like, I don't even know what a consultant is, which is like a whole different conversation, but how I kind of came around to actually adopting that and claiming that for myself. But it was having those conversations that made me realize like, the MBA is probably like at this point in my career, I'm 8 years post undergrad. It's the best next step for me to like really kind of have a transformational. I liked how Myra said it, like a life transplant. Like I really wanted to change something and then disrupt, but I didn't know how. And that's kind of, it was other people kind of speaking that into me that made me realize it was the right choice.
I love that. I love how both of you went from either anti-MBA or not being on your radar to like getting an MBA, and it kind of opening so many more doors of opportunity for both of you. Great. Okay, so the next question, we're gonna go back to Savannah. How did you decide that an MBA was right for you? And did you do the calculations like on the ROI, right? The return on investment, as you considered an MBA? What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think, I kind of mentioned already, like it was through these conversations and recognizing like, things I really loved. I love doing like project-oriented work. I'm a little ADHD. I don't really like doing the same thing every day. And in my mind, I think I always thought like if I was doing business, I was like my days were going to look really the same, and it was monotonous, and like, my only real perspective on business was like what I saw on TV. That wasn't a real job in my mind, I think, growing up. And so, yeah, it was like through those conversations that like I realized that there was a lot of opportunity. Georgia Tech, like their alumni program is really great. So I also started having coffee chats with other, like they put me in touch with several women through the program who were also non-traditional. So like just like through all of that, I was able to kind of see and like start to actually visualize that there was a place for me in this world. And then as far as like the ROI piece, I think that was huge. I mean, small arts nonprofit, I was making like less than 40K a year. Like, I was very cognizant. My husband's a social worker, so like we were both like really aware that like if we were going to do this, like there had to be a strong financial value for it, for both of us to make the investment. For me to, I did the full-time MBA. I don't think I said that up front, but I was quitting my job. We were moving to a new city that was higher cost of living. Like we were really aware of that investment. And actually, I looked at several MBA programs, but one of the reasons why I specifically chose Georgia Tech is it's one of the lowest cost if you look at like average like career salary outcomes with like tuition costs. Like that is even Like it was that directly correlated. We were already living in Georgia, so we were like, well, it's in-state tuition for me. It's cheaper than, a lot of my peer schools that I probably could get into or would be targeting otherwise. And I think there's an opportunity to 3, 4, maybe even 5x my income coming out of it.
Did I answer the same? Sorry. Cool. A little bit. I think for me, I don't think it was as overt. Um, Certainly a big part of the reason I wanted to get an MBA was to pivot into the music sector and also to move abroad. And so one of the benefits of doing my MBA abroad just happened to be also that the costs were much, much less. So whereas it might be, $250,000 in the United States, a 1-year program in Cambridge was at the time like 50,000 pounds. And couple that with a bunch of scholarships, it was more of a, yeah, it wasn't as much of a big calculation in my head. Partially also because I was making decent money before, but certainly I will say that the ROI has definitely delivered on itself, like post MBA.
I love that. I love how both of you did kind of like your own spreadsheet of like school, cost of living, cost of MBA versus the potential that could be there afterwards. So that's great. And great plug for Cambridge being 50,000 pounds. Like that's
I don't know if it's that
a lot
anymore.
less. Yeah, a lot, but a lot less in US. Yeah, in US rate.
Yeah, I was also very
love that.
blessed to get a lot of scholarships. So that was key.
Sounds good. Okay, Mira. So this next question is going to go to you first. What were some of the transferable skills that you brought from your background to kind of either where you're at or as you went through an MBA program?
I mean, I'm still working in startups, so I actually think it's fairly similar. I would say a lot of learning how to build and sell to a pipeline, a lot of learning how to, source key partners and utilize them. Basically, before I was looking to find real estate developers and sell them art. Now we're trying to find music artists and sell them, but sort of share with them our product. So it's pretty similar in terms of transferable skills. But yeah, I mean, I've also learned a lot and implemented a lot, and it's different in other ways. But I would say it's not like I'm completely, not doing something similar.
Yeah, sounds good. Savannah?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, even like when I was thinking about this question, like in preparation for today's call, I was like, man, like in so many ways, I feel like I had no transferable skills. I will say like for consulting, like so much of it is like a resiliency. It's like your attitude, like, how you think about problems and want to solve problems. And so I guess maybe I didn't realize it. I think this goes back to like having those conversations and like talking to people and seeing what they see in you. I think I innately had all of those things, but if you had asked me before my MBA, like, oh, this is a strength of mine, I don't think I would have recognized it or seen it. And really like working through the MBA probably helped me pull some of those things that were always just there and like really refine a lot of those skill sets. One of the things that I remember grasping onto like very early on though in the MBA program is coming from like more of a curatorial background. Like I have always had like a really strong strength in like pattern recognition, right? Like, and like taking a bunch of, pieces that maybe don't look anything alike or they're not by the same artist, but like, how do I organize this information in a way to tell a cohesive story and engage with an audience? And in so many ways, that's like what I'm doing as a consultant now, right? Like I'm taking what, these 3 people told me in an interview, and I'm taking this data, and I'm also taking like our market benchmarks and like best practices. And then I'm like weaving all of this together to a story that we're going to present to the board and say like, hey, this is like why we believe these changes. So it was this thing that I didn't know that skill was connected to this other skill, but because I think I had always like subconsciously been good at this, I was able to like make that connection and that leap a little bit easier.
Can I jump in and say that I love that. And I think that, I mean, I love that this is a non-traditional panel, but I also think that this idea that there is one way of intelligence is sort of overtly patriarchal, and like a lot of the creative industries are considered non-traditional for some reason or another. But actually, I find that people who are able to think about things in a creative way, by definition, that's what intelligence is. And so I think that coming from an arts background or a creative background where you've been making connections between things that other people might not make connections between, to me is so obvious. And I think it's like a huge marker of intelligence, actually.
Yeah. And I think
Yeah.
I gets ahead of it a little bit, I think, on some of our other questions, but like one of the things I had to realize during recruiting is that I was not going to be everyone's ideal candidate. Like there are going to be people who are looking for the finance or ops background, and like I had to like let those opportunities go and not get attached to them. But I could tell like when I would resonate with people and like I could make that connection, people would really grasp onto me. They'd really understand the value that I brought to the organization. So like learning how to articulate that story and like sell like, hey, I'm non-traditional, but like this is why you need me. This is actually why I bring value was like really pivotal in my recruiting journey.
Yeah. And especially with AI, right? Like, no offense, but like anyone can learn finance. Like
Yeah.
models can learn finance and operations, and like so many things are being, automated. But what you can't really automate is creativity. I mean, you can train things on creativity, but you can't automate that. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I love that. And that's what like business schools want, right? They don't want a carbon copy of every single candidate to look alike. They want variety. They want, a diverse group of people that have all these different backgrounds and insights, because that's what continues to help people grow, right? That's how we all learn, and that's how things get bigger and better, is when you have all these ideas from people coming from different walks of life, or people coming from different work backgrounds, that are able to kind of share their point of view or their experience, and not just a bunch of, like I said, cookie cutter people maybe just coming from finance. So that's one plug for business schools, is that they do want a variety of different backgrounds in their sitting in those seats.
Yeah.
And I loved that. Yeah.
Sorry, Melissa. I was just gonna
sorry.
say, and I think,
No,
I
jump
think,
in.
like for me personally, like the doors that have opened to me from getting an MBA, like I know with my resume, like I never would have had opportunities to have the conversations and to have the interviews that I had, or like, to have the career that I have had. Like that's just like a fact of the matter is maybe I'm like just as smart in some ways as I was 4 years ago, 5 years ago when I was considering an MBA, but like the doors that it has opened for me
Yeah.
are, yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, I completely agree. And to that end, like in terms of like I mentioned scholarships, like a lot of the scholarships I got were because I was in arts. Like there's also a lot of opportunity, I think, with coming from a bit of a different angle, because you spice it up. Like people want it to be more interesting.
For sure.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, because I think there's so many candidates out there that are worried, like, oh my goodness, like I only have this X number of skills, is what they're thinking, right? But then you don't realize like how many transferable soft skills that are so much more valuable, right? Sometimes then I think like Mira said it best, like so many things can be automated now, but what you can't automate is somebody's personality, their experience, their viewpoint, their soft skills that they bring. So I think that's definitely great. So those that are watching, do not be apprehensive about, if you're worried that you're coming from a background that isn't finance, that isn't consulting, that an MBA isn't for you, because the skills that you have acquired so far, doesn't matter where you come from, will still benefit you in business school and beyond. So, okay, I'll get off my soapbox now. Next question we will pose to Savannah. What skills or experiences did you gain from your degree that created value or a competitive advantage in your career?
Oh, that's such a great question, because I think to the points that we were just talking about, right? Like a lot of my competitive advantage came from being a different thinker and like having that. Where I think the degree helped like round me out and shape me was probably actually more on some of those hard skills. Like I'm in consulting, like there's just like a foundational level of like Excel knowledge and like even like analytics and finance, accounting, like all of those things that I did not have, right? Again, Bachelor of Fine Arts in photography. Like there was no accounting or like finance classes in my undergrad experience. So I do think like having foundational knowledge, like yes, I can still go to Copilot or ChatGPT to like ask questions and like pressure test things. However, and I'll say like I have some new hires that I've been working with, and it's so clear that it's like, oh, you went to undergrad in the age of AI because like that's just like what you go to, and there's like a critical thinking skill sometimes that gets lost. So like, yes, I can use AI to like do a lot of that, but if you don't have the foundational like knowledge to do the critical thinking, it gets really hard. So I would say like it was for me really about the foundational stuff because I think I brought a lot of the differentiation just being from that non-traditional background.
I had a bit of a weird year because I went during COVID, so half the year the classes were not online. So I probably missed out on a lot of the actual learnings that I would have otherwise had. Um, but I will say that it's not a skill per se because like I said, I have a physics background. I love math.
Mhm.
Corporate finance was my best and favorite class. Um, but actually, it was a lot of the osmosis of being in a room with a bunch of other people who think large and who have ambition and who have connections and like think about things, especially in an international business school, like, oh, okay, this person's from Hong Kong and they run this big company in Hong Kong. Like, how do they approach management or think about developing their company or versus this person's from California like me, like how are we similar, how are we different? So I think it was more of like an osmosis of ideas that I can't necessarily tangibly point to any of them, but at the end I just felt a lot more capable and like able to speak about topics on a bigger level than I had before.
Yeah.
I love that. I love how it gave you capability, and that probably also increased your confidence
Yeah, it's
in
probably most of
various.
it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we're just to tell our audience, we're going to come up here shortly on some Q&A time. So if you have questions, definitely start throwing them in the Q&A section so we can go ahead and get all those burning questions answered for you. But the next question I'm going to pose first to Mira, and then we'll let Savannah chime in. But Mira, what advice would you give women who view themselves as non-traditional?
Honestly, I think that like I was saying that word, I don't really resonate with it at all. Like I just don't think anyone is traditional. Or I mean, there are traditional paths, I suppose, and they talk about it with the MBA, but in my head, it's never been non-traditional to be from a different sector. My little sister just got her MBA as well, and she was a human rights lawyer, and she was really concerned about this. And I was like, "Girl, like you're smart. You're a woman of color. Like you got this. Like I don't know. I think that the idea of non-traditional is something that's being broken down more and more, and I wouldn't worry about it. Like it's actually an asset, if anything."
Um, Sorry, I got distracted. I think I agree maybe to an extent with Myra. Like I said, my personal experience was I wasn't everyone's cup of tea. Like I was too non-traditional for a few people and like and I could tell like you go and have coffee chats and I'm like, okay, this is not a place where I'm going to be my unique perspective is going to be valued and like I want to be. Like I would probably end up being unhappy here. And so I think part of like success in an MBA program, and I would give this advice whether or not you're traditional or non-traditional, but it's resiliency, right? Like a big part of an MBA, especially if you're looking to make a career pivot, which I imagine if you're on this call, it's because you're looking to make a career pivot, is you have to be like willing to like handle the rejection that often comes with the recruiting process. Like not everybody is going to jump up and down and like give you a job offer. And in fact, my mentor, like through the program and like one of our leaders of our career services would always say like it's the two-step pivot. So I did a 2-year program recruited for consulting my first year, didn't get a consulting internship, ended up working at Bank of America in like an internal strategy role, came back, re-recruited a second time, and that's when I landed consulting. So it was like a longer play for me, and I had to sit sometimes in the discomfort of rejection, but be able to like see for myself that I was going to bring value and I was going to find the right firm that saw that value. And so like it's deeply discomfortable at times, but it like doesn't mean it won't pay off. You just have to like bring that level of resiliency of continuing to like show up every day.
I love that. Like I feel like the most growth happens when we are in those situations that force us to grow. And unfortunately, they're uncomfortable. But once you just kind of like, okay, this is uncomfortable. Like, I feel like if you name it, you can tame it. This is uncomfortable, but I'm going to continue to do this. So absolutely. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your insights so far. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to the Q&A. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate to type them in. We've already got a couple of them already in here, but we'll try to get through most of them. If they start coming in all at once, we'll try to do as much as we can. So let's see. So I have a question from Aparna, who has the question, how early would be too early, if that's even a thing, to do an MBA to pivot away from what she considers being non-traditional, and it looks like she's in design?
So I can speak for Georgia Tech, which is like, we usually ask that people, I think, have 2 to 3 years of work experience at minimum before they come back for an MBA. I think different programs have different expectations. But I would say like, I don't think there is like a too early, as long as you have some level of work experience. Like ideally an MBA really is intended for people who already have some level of work experience when they're coming back for an MBA. That would be my kind of 5,000 foot view without knowing more, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for Cambridge, I was 27 when I started, and I was definitely one of the younger people. And there were people in their 40s. So I would say that a few years, like, I don't know if you'd get the benefit because you haven't really tried to pivot in other ways either. Like, if you're in design, maybe you could look at starting a little mini design consultancy and try your hand at entrepreneurship first before just spending a bunch of money on an MBA.
I love that, to first kind of calculate if that's what you really want. And that's what these types of webinars are designed to do, is to help you kind of explore the options that are open to you. I'm going to put another shameless plug in there for our Forte Forum coming up in December. That is another great way to explore whether or not you really want an MBA, and if an MBA is going to be best for you, is to sign up for that forum. There's panels that go over the admission process, that alumni panels that will very similar to kind of like the one you're watching, but women who have gone through member schools and are now on the other side and kind of sharing their experience and how an MBA helped them as well. So those are all great ways to explore whether you want an MBA, or if an MBA is right for you at a very low risk. So attending our December forum is a great way to engage with the community, with business schools at a low risk environment. So Sarah, it looks like you just dropped the link to learning more about a value of an MBA, and that'll also lead you to our forums as well. Okay, great. I'll stop plugging our forum. The next question I thought was kind of interesting, and it kind of looks segued off of like one of the other questions we had earlier, but what were some of your experiences pre-MBA that you felt played a significant role during your application process?
Okay.
I definitely think working my way up a startup and showing like consistency and growth there was good. And then also, we started opening up an office in London, which I was a part of, which I thought was helpful for the application to show that international element. So those would be some of the things. Again, to the point of like not doing it too soon. Like you want to demonstrate that you sunk your teeth and are ready for actually like something more to teach you beyond what like, 7 years of work experience can get you.
I think there's a couple things that come to mind for me. The big one, let's like top, is working for a nonprofit. I think I was like always very like eager to come to the table and be like, here's like my strategic goals. Like here's like what we can do to grow our organization. Here's what we can do to like spread our mission. And I worked for a great nonprofit. My voice was often heard, but it was always clear to me that the people who made the decisions were not the hands of this nonprofit. They were the people sitting on the board. They were the ones being able to make donations. And I remember like for me, like thinking about like, I want to make more money. I want to be able to be a person who can like sit on the board and like be respected for that like strategic level of influence. And I just felt that even though I could like have some control over my tiny little microcosm of my role, like I wasn't really able to influence like the broader strategy of the organization. And so seeing that like disconnect from like I want to be able to do this, but I feel like I'm kept out of the room where it happens, so to speak. Like that was like one of my major catalysts of like I can go back to school and like kind of develop this level of respect. I think some other like just like things that were kind of happening similar to COVID, which was like, I stepped into like I gotten promoted to that new role where I had much wider purview. And so I was actually like really more responsible for running my own P&L and taking on that level of responsibility of like, hey, I'm responsible not just for like the success, but also like what are the costs of my organization and like getting more granular there kind of, I think, affirmed in me that I could do that. And I think because I hadn't been exposed to that before that point, that was part of the reason why like an MBA was just like never really an option or feasible. But once I like stepped into a role where I started to take more ownership over those line items, and had more say on like how we spent our money and the revenue that was coming in, I think it gave me a little bit of confidence that I could translate that skill to somewhere else.
Great. I love that. Okay, the next question I thought was kind of a good one, also kind of a spinoff of a previous question we asked earlier from Stephanie wants to know, what was both of your processes for deciding which schools and programs to enroll in? Like was testing, test waivers, any of that was in your process or not? Or what was just in general kind of your process for deciding Georgia Tech's the school for me or Cambridge Judge is, and then, how you selected that amongst all these other business schools?
So, sorry, Mara, you want to take it first?
No, you go first.
Okay. Sorry, I was just like off mute, so it's easy for me to jump in. I think I kind of already answered a bit on like the how I decided on Georgia Tech piece, which was it really came down to like looking at the cost of tuition, and balancing that with like the return on investment as far as like salary outcomes, as well as like who has the pipeline to like the types of jobs I want. We do send a lot of people to consulting, and I kind of had honed in by the time I got to the application stage that was probably where I was going to target, at least for immediately post MBA. For the GMAT waiver, I think kind of came about like it's more of a thing post COVID. And actually, this is I think it's a funny story. Georgia Tech had just piloted a GMAT waiver when I decided to apply. And I remember talking to our recruiting partner at Georgia Tech, and she was like, yeah, we are doing this GMAT waiver, but based on your background, I would not suggest you like apply for it. You should still take the GMAT. And I was like, you know what? I know that like I can take this test. I know that I can crush this test. My resume does not show that like I have these strong quant skills. And if I have to take this GMAT to prove to Georgia Tech that like I am a good candidate, like that was like a small thing for me to like take on. So for me personally, like it was a little bit of a come to Jesus where I was like, okay, like I know based on my resume, like there's a perceived gap. No one's going to look at this and think this person, has taken college level calculus. And that's fine. I barely passed calculus. So yeah, I did take the GMAT. Depending on your non-traditional level of background. Like if you're an engineer, maybe a GMAT waiver is like a totally fine choice. If you're coming from more of an arts background, like consider taking the GMAT just to like help round out that application.
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't even know the GMAT waivers were a thing. I think like Cambridge requires like the average minimum score is a 700. So like similar to what Savannah is saying, I think especially if you come from a non whatever that means traditional background. Like my other friends that have done this, one of them, he works at Warner. Like I said, my little sister is a human rights lawyer. It is just the way to show that it's a signal, it's an indicator. It's an indicator of how much you're willing to put in time effectively. Like if you take the time to study and you have a good tutor or a good method, like you will be able to make a good score. Like it's not rocket science, it's certainly not easy. But so I mean that I just kind of I honestly crammed for like 3 months because I waited for so long and I was studying like 12 hours a day and then I got the score I needed and that was fine. So I would say don't be afraid of it. It's just a test and you can figure out the way to do it. And then with regards to picking schools, it sounds really dumb, but I am such a straight shooter. Like I only applied to one undergrad and I only applied to one MBA school. So I was originally going to apply to both Cambridge and Oxford, but when I applied to Oxford round one, and then I was going to apply to Cambridge round one and Oxford round two, but then I got in and I got a bunch of scholarships and I was tired and I really loved Cambridge when I visited, so I was like, great, that's it. So, and I was happy with my decision.
I love that. And I loved how we didn't focus so much on the test, because I feel like so many are terrified to take the test or put so much pressure on themselves to, to take this test that they keep putting it off. But I think it's great that both of you showed that you don't have to be a finance major, right, in order to do well, first of all, and to get into the school that you want to get into. So I love that. Remember that, attendees who are on here today, you are more than a number, and business school representatives don't just focus on that number. They don't, that's not how you get it. Like they look at the application holistically. So what you bring in all different kinds of categories, not just a test, because you guys are more than just a test. Okay.
100%. And sorry, just really quick plug. If anyone needs a good tutor, the guy who taught me has taught all my friends. He's incredible. So I definitely think finding a good tutor is worth it if you can. Yeah, just my 2 cents. Because I was studying for like a year and I didn't have a tutor, and then I studied for 3 months with a tutor, and it made the world of a difference.
Well, that great experience. Okay, here's another question that's come in that I thought we would explore. In regards to the return on investment, what are some other ways that your MBA or going to a business school has proved valuable for you?
I met my fiance. He's really that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, professionally as well, though. I mean, generally, a lot of it is social, right? Like, I have a completely new group of friends. I think that your network is your net worth. It is true. Like I think you make these amazing friends in high school and undergrad, and they're still precious. But if you're the type of person who wants to get an MBA, you're the type of person who probably is interested in growing and exploring and expanding your life. And not everyone from undergrad and high school is going to follow that path. So when you go to an MBA, you meet people that are like that. And through those people, you might get a job. There's professional aspects to that as well, but then there's just the life quality aspects, which I don't think is undervalued at all. I think it's actually very valuable.
Yeah, I think that was really well said. I had my husband coming into the MBA, so I didn't have that opportunity. But I did graduate with like not just like an amazing network, but like a really amazing core group of friends. We literally were hanging out last night playing mahjong. So like, I think especially if you're somebody in your mid to late 20s or your early 30s, even like you're learning that it's really hard to make new friends as an adult. And like, I just graduated from this 2-year program. I have an amazing job. And I also have like this new group of lifelong friends who I'm very close with, has been like a personal like victory for me. Shoot, I had one more thing that I wanted to say. It's totally gone. But yeah, I think for me, like outside of like the career transformation, the increased salary, like the the next most amazing thing has just been like the friend group and like the network that I graduated with.
You know, we hear that all the time from like some of our, you know, our launchers who go through the program, get into a business school, meet amazing other women like themselves, and then they become like lifelong friends. And here we had a launcher who got into a business school with another launcher that she was, you know, went through the program with, and then she gets married couple years down the road, and who is like a bridesmaid is like somebody who's like was in the launch program with her and then also went to, you know, was in her same business school. So the network that you create, like don't underestimate the lifelong connections and network you will make going through business school.
Yeah. I did want to say, I remembered what I was going to say, which is I think on the network piece, I think I was really scared personally going into an MBA program. Coming from my background, I was like, there are not going to be people like me. You know, like I'd gone to art school. I was like, I have a very clear sense of like who my people were. And I was so nervous going to an MBA program, like my first day showing up for orientation, of finding friends, like connecting with people. And I will say, if you're probably sitting on this call, you're probably a little bit more type A. Like you will find like really cool, like badass women who like are amazing and you're going to want to like make lifelong friendships with. And I didn't realize that that was like a carve out that I was missing in my personal life. Just based on like who I had naturally. So I thought I had this one idea of like who my friends were and what my friend group looked like. And then being on an MBA, like I think it unlocked something in me, and also like I said, and then I just like found all these great people that like kind of filled that gap. So.
Yeah, I was just the best man at someone from my program's wedding last weekend. So I'm a girl, but
See,
he's
it
a
happens.
guy.
I love that.
It happens. See, you make friends for life that way, close friendships. Okay, great. Gosh, we're coming up on like the last 10 minutes. This has just been just a nice conversation. I'm going to close out with one question. I'm going to pose to both of you before kind of we do kind of some closing slides I have. But what would be your final advice to give somebody considering an MBA, or what would you tell like your previous MBA self? That would be very inspirational for anybody sitting on this call. And if you have to take a moment to think about it, go ahead.
I would say that like it is both a golden ticket and not. Like, so it is, I did get a life transplant, but also like I'm still the same person. So I would say definitely it's worth it and an amazing experience, and but like be ready to be surprised in ways with values that you didn't expect you to get. And then also like don't ride your whole identity and like life on this thing either. You know, it's just so I would say, I don't know if that's inspiring or not, but I think it is. It's like it is what you make of it, and if you're the type of person who's bringing your full self to things, then it's going to be an amazing transformational experience. And also don't worry about not being X or Y, because no one really is the perfect. There's no such thing as that. Like everybody is unique and interesting in their own way, and you just have to be confident that you are special in your own way. And I think the more you can tap into that, the more people will feel that. So bring that to the interview, bring that to the program when you're there, and then bring that to your life afterwards.
I kind of feel like I want Myra to talk to my pre-MBA self. That was so well said. And I don't know that I actually have like much more to add. I think it'll be hard in ways you didn't expect, and it will be fulfilling in other ways that you didn't expect. And I don't really think anything can like fully prepare you for like that transformative experience. But I like that Myra's like, I'm the same person that went into that program. I just have come out more realized and actualized, I think, in a lot of ways. So.
Great. And I will add one, yes, both beautiful comments, both eloquently said. And I will add one other thing out there. If you want to go to business school, there is a business school out there for you. So don't underestimate yourself. We have two amazing women from fine arts, right, photography and music, who have just shown you the transformational process of an MBA and what it's done for them. So, a couple of years ago, we had a third grade teacher, I think, who sat on a very similar panel, who was like, they didn't see me coming because I was a third grade teacher. And then she's now like an MBA and a consultant. So do not underestimate yourself. You bring value to other people's lives and to an MBA program. So definitely, if that's something you really want, you can definitely get it. If you need some help, I'm going to put another shameless plug out here. If you need help building your best application, check out the MBA Launch program. That's what it's designed to do, is help you show up the best way you can on your application, on your interviews, so on and so forth. So it's a great program. If you haven't already looked into it, definitely look into the different flavors of launch that we have. I'm going to share my screen one last time. Here we go. I just want to give a big shout out and thanks to our two schools that were represented today. They're sponsors of this webinar. We could not bring the content that we do to you without the amazing support and help of our member schools. So thank you so much to Georgia Tech, Scheller College of Business, and the University of Cambridge Judge School of Business for showcasing two amazing women. And thank you so much for joining us today. Like I said, if you have questions, please email us at premba@fortefoundation.org. You can also check out our YouTube channel. The link is on this particular slide. We have a showcase of many other great content webinars. We would love for you to check them out. We'd love for you to go to our website and check them out there as well. So thank you all. Thank you, Savannah. Thank you, Mira, for being so transparent and so insightful and inspirational for our audience today. And audience, thank you so much for carving out an hour of the day to invest in yourself. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your day and have a delightful week.